I want to thank our sponsors, Athletic Greens, who created AG1, one of the most innovative packets of supplements, including 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. These ingredients support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. I personally started using Athletic Greens and love the way I feel in the morning after I drink it. And I no longer have energy crashes throughout the day. And the best part is that it's delicious. The founder of Athletic Greens created AG1 because he experienced a ton of gut health and ended up on a complicated and expensive supplement routine to recover. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Yasmin. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/Yasmin, YASMEEN, to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Hi, my name is Yasmin Turehi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Today's episode is about scripting with Royce Christyn, who's an actor, author, futurist, and documentary film director. His first book, the bestseller Scripting the Life You Want, is available wherever books are sold. And he's also appeared on numerous shows and films, including Zoey 101, Drake and Josh, and Disney Channel's Wizards of Waverly Place with Selena Gomez. I'm so excited to welcome Royce to the show. He's also been working on the next season of his show, as well as his next book, a follow-up to Scripting the Life You Want. I highly recommend reading that book. I think I devoured it in like 1 or 2 days, and it's really been a powerful experiment with life. He's also teaching a limited number of special workshops in 2022, so you can find more about him at Royce Christyn. I'm going to spell the last name, CHRISTYN.com. All right, welcome to the show, Royce.
Thank you. I'm kind of blushing. That's like, I don't know who wrote that, but thank you to whoever wrote that intro. That was awesome.
I'm so
always
excited.
Weird for me. I'm like always like, oh my God. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, I think I sit there like curling up in the ball. That one was really nice and kind. So thank you.
It's so lovely to connect. I feel like this is a long time coming. So I'm just so excited that I get to have you on the show and we get to talk about my favorite topic, which is scripting.
Yes. And also, it's so interesting because before the show, we were talking about my next book, and it's about future self. And I think you said you're titling the episode Scripting Your Future Self, right? It's fascinating for anybody interested in that concept because Scripting the Life You Want is kind of, my book is very much sort of an entry into that world, I think. And I didn't even really think of it that way when I was writing it. But now that I've been working on this next book, which we'll get into, and it deals with, utilizing your environment and utilizing the things around you and your office and your home space to affect your future self, but also work with that version of you. This is a really good starting place for that book, but it's the point that we're talking, the book's been out for 2 years now, is such an interesting point for anybody listening, because I think we're going to be able to give people a lot of nuggets of info that are from both books, the first one and then the next one coming out.
Yes, amazing. And actually, just to kick it off for our audience who might be very new to scripting and like what that means and how it works, can you just first define it and talk about like what does it actually mean to script?
Sure. So, I talk about this in the book a little bit, but my upbringing was very different. I had a mom and a grandmother who, instead of sending me off to Sunday school or to temple or, fill in the blank religious school during the weekend, as so many kids have to go to in this country, I would go learn all sorts of esoteric things, and they would teach me about name a topic, throw a stick into the world of spirituality, or anything in that realm. I mean, whether it was tarot cards or learning what, how to protect yourself energetically, or what manifesting was, that was my upbringing. I had a very, very, and my great grandmother was that way. It just goes back and back. So sort of this tradition of spirituality, even before it had a word, I would say. And one of the things that I was always fascinated with was the idea of manifesting. And, for anybody listening, manifesting is such a loaded word, because it means so many things to so many people. And I think I could already feel the eyeballs getting stuck from rolling. I get that. I get it, because I feel the same way, honestly. But to me, manifesting is consciously creating your own reality, yes, but I'm all about the science of everything. I'm a huge nerd and I love everything scientific. So I like to say it's creating your own reality, utilizing these spiritual tools that we all have available to us. And even the word spiritual, semantics, whatever, but also learning the science that backs up so much of what manifestation is, especially in the last 10 years, which is why I am so excited to be able to write books now versus, 10 or 20 years ago. I'm only 34, but I've been working since I was 9. And the reason I've been working since I was 9 is because I figured out how to manifest, but there was always sort of this issue where, writing down intentions or, just kind of thinking about it or visualizing. I'm not a great visualizer. I mean, I've been an actor since I was a kid, and people always get surprised, but there was just, there's a lot of different kind of just threads of ways to do things. And to get to your question of what scripting is, when I was about 14, 15 years old, and my book, Scripting the Life You Want, opens this way. My mom handed me a book that changed my life forever. We were actually driving. I grew up on the East Coast. It was right before I moved to LA. And we were going on a little vacation to the Barrier Islands in Virginia. And she handed me a book called Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting by Lynn Grabhorn. And it totally fundamentally changed my life, because I felt like here was the information that my mom and grandma had not told me, and not purposely, but, there's a very old school style of manifestation, which is about thought, thought, you got to monitor your thoughts and everything has to be positive. And that just felt like garbage to me. Like, it felt impossible. And I know a lot of other people feel the same way. And, excuse me, your life is waiting. It's actually based on the teachings of Abraham Hicks and a few other older teachers of manifestation. But she talks in that book about a bunch of different processes. But what it comes down to is, for her, emotions and feelings. And that really struck a chord with me. And she had these, and I'll get into what I mean by that. But she had an exercise called scripting in that book. And what her version of it was, and this was what scripting was publicly, whether it was from Esther Hicks or Lynn Grabhorn or whoever, up until my book came out, scripting was I'm laughing because I make fun of it in the book. All love to everyone I just mentioned, but essentially you would be in your one-bedroom apartment and talk about how great it was being the president of the United States out loud, and you pretend you're having this phone conversation about just how wonderful the inauguration dinner was and how great it was to meet all of these different dignitaries, and meanwhile you're sounding like a crazy person because you're talking out loud and by yourself, and your roommates are probably going, what the hell? And also you don't feel very much like you're the president because you're in your one-bedroom apartment on Wilshire. So it's fascinating and funny and weird to me that I ended up writing a whole book on scripting, because my initial reaction to it was, ugh. But I tried it anyway, and it worked really well. And it worked like 5% at the time, which, to be frank, was better than most of the other manifesting exercises that I had, seen or encountered. And, we're talking also about 2003, 2004. So this is about 3 or 4 years before The Secret sort of introduced this idea of the law of attraction to the world. and I had been learning, I was born in 88. So I'd been learning all these sort of very, now I would say archaic ways of manifestation or tools for a long time. So long story short, I was, like I mentioned, I was acting on the East Coast. I moved to LA and I was really fortunate. I had, the whole team, I had the agents and the manager and the publicist and the lawyer and all that fun stuff. And I just was not getting the work. I was one time, I think my agent called me the king of screen tests. One year, I think I tested for like 34 different projects, which was amazing to them. But to me, I was like, I would like to actually be in these fucking projects. Thank you. So I was like hell bent, Yasmin, on figuring out how this works. Cause I was testing all these different methods. And that was like, I always say my college in a way. I did an accelerated high school program and I graduated early and I moved to LA at 16. So, I was working, but I also wanted to be doing bigger and better things. And my college was sort of just constantly going to the Barnes and Noble at the Grove and buying any new book I could find and devour on manifesting and trying it out. And finally, after about a year and a half of doing a million different things, and some of them working and some of them not, I just had this sort of clarifying experience where I was, lamenting to my friend of how I felt like I was so close to figuring it out. And it turned out I was. And she said, well, why don't you go to your journal? Like you're journaling, right? Why don't you go back and kind of look at your journal and see what did work? And then Yasmin, it was like the craziest thing I can ever experience. I can't even really explain it. I don't even know if I could do justice to it. I don't know if I do in the book either. I tell the longer version, but essentially it was like suddenly it clicked, like it literally clicked. I snapped my fingers for everybody listening. No one can see me. I don't know why I just snapped them, but I ran to my journal and what she said was sort of irrelevant because it occurred to me, oh my God, scripting out loud was the thing that seemed to work the most, but I felt like a lunatic. I would go hide in my, at the time, 96 Corolla, and just sort of like talk. It was a mess. But I realized that, wait, what if I woke up and when I wake up in the morning, I'd already started doing something instead of a want list, people write down what they want. I had already created my own sort of list that I call it a want list, but it's actually an intention list. And that's the first step of scripting, which we could talk about. But basically, instead of saying, I want $1 million, you'd write, I intend to have $1 million or easily receive. But the
Right.
point is, you want to change the word want to intend and just write a couple a day. And I had realized also at that point that you want to put in mundane things. I call them the magical mundane. So this was a huge key that was already working when I had this epiphany in the few weeks before the epiphany was, putting in things like, I intend to have an easy time at the grocery store. I intend to have a fun day at the dentist, like literally the most boring shit you can think of, folding that in with the $1 million and wanting the castle or the, or to end world hunger or whatever it is that you want, like folding in the small things with the big things was seeming to work somehow. And then I had a second, this is in a notebook at the time. You could do it on your computer or on your phone even. I do it most of the time now. But, I'd write about 5 to 7 of this want list. But you'd write it as intention. And then the next page, I would, just do two things from the intention list that I believed were the most likely to happen. And sometimes that could be something really big, that could be one of the big ones. Sometimes that would be just, I would write down, I know that I'm going to have a good day, it could be really basic. So I had that already going for a few weeks and something was sort of moving and working. And I ran up, as my friend suggested, to my journal, but I already knew. I was like, oh my God, I've been keeping this journal to kind of keep track of all the different, at that point, honestly, it was almost 1,000 different techniques I had tried over years. And I was like, this needs to be a regular journal. And in the morning, first thing when I wake up, I need to pretend it's the end of the day. And I need to think backwards and write as if it's the end of the day and write exactly how my day went. And when I had this moment of clarity, Yasmin, everything changed. So I went from screen testing constantly to I booked the lead guest star on Selena Gomez's sitcom on Disney Channel, which is something I had wanted to do for, at that point, months. The show was had been in the works, I think, since December, and this was June or July. And it was immediate. And then I started doing this every morning. So I wake up, I do just a couple intentions. The whole thing takes 5 minutes, So I write down a couple intentions, 5 to 7 intentions on my want list. Then I do 1 or 2 beliefs, and then I'd flip the page and I date it, and I'd say, okay, it's August 3rd, 2035, or, I'm just thinking forward here for anybody listening in the future. And keep in mind, it is first thing in the morning, and I just pretended it was the end of the night. I said, oh, it was a great day. And you always want to include whatever you've done, and I always suggest people do this before you look at your phone or check your text message. I know I am addicted to my phone like everybody else.
Right.
I know how hard it is, but and trust me, I very open about the fact that I have ADHD. And if I can do it, anybody out there can do it. So yeah, you would just wake up and you would write it out. That's what I did. I started writing it as if it was the end of the day. And then I still kept my journal at night. And on about the 5th day, I said, well, this is really great. It was working for immediate stuff, but for long-term things, I had this other epiphany where on Sundays, and you can pick any day, a lot of my clients and former students and people that I work with in classes and workshops, they like Sundays. It just tends to be an easier day. You have less planned, you have less scheduled. It's just, you have more time, and you need a little more time for this because normal scripting should take 5 to 10 minutes in the morning. But I wrote what I call a 10-day script. And on, every Sunday, I would just look at the calendar and go, okay, what's 10 days from today? All right. And I would date it as such. And there's, a couple more steps, which people can read about in the book. But essentially, I would do the same thing. I'd write it like a long form journal entry, looking back on the past 10 days. And when I did that, that is when my whole world just, blossomed. And I started manifesting and creating so many of these amazing desires that I'd wanted forever. Okay, I'm so sorry I interrupted you. Oh my God, I feel horrible. Everybody listening, I promise. It's the ADHD.
No. This is great. Thank you so much for the backstory and the context. I think just for our audience, just because we have 70 plus countries listening in with very different kind of understandings of this space, I really like to break it down for people so that it feels digestible, and also something that they can implement right away in their day to day. So I'm going to go back to some of the things that you introduced, and then we can talk about them a little bit. So scripting is this process that you discovered where if you write about your day before it happens, like right away, you start with first an intention of how you want to feel, and then what your beliefs are about the day, and then you actually write a diary entry as if the day already happened. You also write your actual diary entry at the end of the day to sort of compare notes. So that's one piece of it, which is I would call it daily life scripting. And then the second piece is, about the 10-day scripting, which you like to do on Sundays, just because it gives people a lot of space and time to do look at the calendar 10 days out and write about the last 10 days as if it already happened. And in your book, you actually use the language, I'm so grateful that I had the best 10 days and here's how it started. Something like that. The introduction line, I think, is very specific. Right.
Yeah. So I just, for anybody listening, don't be overwhelmed because here's what I tell everybody to do. And this is so easy these days. I still go to a pharmacy or grocery store, wherever you can get those, those dollar 70-page notebooks, that spiral notebooks. Get two of them. And one of them is going to be your nightly journal. And in your journal, just do it. It doesn't have to be pages and pages long. It could be 5 sentences. It can be however long or short you want it to be. And just write how, at the end of the night, just write how your day went. Do that for a couple days. And then after you get used to that and sort of in that flow of just writing a paragraph journal every night, look to the other notebook when you wake up in the morning. And you're just going to do 3 very quick things. And the first one is a want list, which you write as an intention. So just write 5 to 7 intentions, not just for the day, though. These can be really big things or really little things. And look at that list and flip the page and say, what of these things do I believe the most, that are most truly in my heart? I know I want these things, but is there one thing on here that I believe is possible? And that's why I encourage people to write these magical, mundane things, having a great time with my best friend at the movies. That's probably going to happen. So write that 1 or 2 things down and just change it from I intend to have a great time at the movies to I know I'm going to have a great time at the movies. And that want list and that intent and the belief list should just take like 2-3 minutes. And then you're going to flip to the third page, and remembering it's first thing in the morning, you're just going to pretend it's like, write it like the journal you've been writing for the last couple nights. Write it as if it's the end of the day and you've had your day, and write it out, but put in all the things. If you have a schedule that day, or you know you're going to see a certain person or do a certain thing, fold that in, but also fold in your desires. Start building up to, you know, the things that you want. Like, start like weaving it into your morning script. And the most incredible thing about my version of scripting, because I didn't discover scripting as an out loud practice, but this is the idea of using it as a writing practice, I will take credit for. That is mine. And, you know, people get all freaked out by the idea of writing so much, but let me tell you what happens after about 2 weeks is you will start to not be able to notice the difference between your nightly journal, which is the complete truth, good, bad, ugly, wonderful, whatever happened during your day, and your morning fake journal entry, which is your morning script. And it's wild. And I know, Yasmin, you've had some success with scripting, and, you know, so many people are blown away because they hear that and they go, oh my God, what? That's not
Yes.
possible, but it is.
Yes, yes. And I mean, so I can just like share anecdotally, when I started doing the daily scripting, I'd written this 10-part audio miniseries about growing up Iraqi American called Hyphenated Journey. And for 3 weeks, I
Oh, now
wrote
I want to
that.
listen to that. It's called Hyphenated Journey. Let's promote that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's so cool. One of my
Thank
best friends is Iraqi, so I think anybody out there listening, that just already
Oh,
sounds like something that you should go out and listen to.
oh, amazing. Well, I'd love to meet him or her, because there's not that many of us.
No, not in LA,
So,
at least.
but yeah, I started to write down that the show would be selected at the top of the carousel in US Apple, on the Apple US
Yes,
carousel.
yes.
And within 3 weeks, it was.
Isn't that
Isn't
crazy?
it
You know,
crazy? It
and
was
people
just
go, and
like,
like, you have a
wow.
beautiful voice and you sound amazing, and all your listeners obviously listen to you because you're funny and you're wise and smart and you have a wonderful speaking voice. So sometimes people, you know, even when they, you know, I was an actor, I had a lot of things lined up, but as you know, just having that talent and that wisdom and all the things you need to create a program like that, or to, you know, maybe get to the last step before you book a TV show like I was doing, there is that extra little piece of magic, and scripting helps. And it doesn't just apply to the entertainment industry that we're in, but, you know, it really applies to everything. It could be your wedding. It could be successfully cooking your great grandmother's, you know, pudding cake recipe. Really, like, you know, I like how versatile scripting is, because, and I love that you had that just makes me smile. And,
Yes. Yeah, it
you
was.
know,
Oh,
oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I want people to know, like, they can, anybody listening, we're just becoming best friends over this course of this. So please ignore this phone call that you're listening to, basically. No, you know, and if you don't like writing, you know, and the idea of buying notebooks or wasting paper, I use my phone now. I have an iPhone and I use the Notes app, like, or Evernote is a great program. If you have a laptop, it's an app that you can download. It's free. I'm all about making this free and just as easy as possible. I get yelled at sometimes by, you know, I won't say who, but just people around me, because I am always just very openly giving the whole process out, because I think everybody should try it. And I also believe that when they try it and see it works, then maybe they'll buy the book or come to a course. You know, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
everybody should have access to this very simple tool, and you can type it, you can write it on your phone. If you don't like the idea of writing a whole page of a script, just start with a sentence or two. Really, like, it will still work. And I'm also very much against the dogma of the new age spirituality, even part of, I hate to say it, but the manifesting community, if you will, because there's this idea that you have to be happy all the time and do these processes, and you must do this meditation every day for the rest of your life till you die, or do this manifesting process. I am the opposite. If you want to put this down for 6 months, do it. I do that all the time. I will script for a couple of days during the week, and then I'll stop for 3 months, and then I'll do it every day religiously for 2 months, and then I'll stop. Like, anybody out there listening who's been burned or stressed out by any manifesting process you've tried, come over to the light side. I promise you it's great here. And we are all about openly expressing our emotions and still manifesting the things that we want.
Amazing. Amen to that. I love that.
Yes.
I love the accessibility and the flexibility. And I also want to go back to something you mentioned, which is this book called Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting, which was like your inspiration, if you will,
Yes.
kind of for this world. The funny thing was I've read probably at this point like 500 plus books on these topics of spirituality and intuition and manifestation. And I had never come across that book until a month before I actually connected with you.
Yeah. If you're listening, did you, because that was the email that I got from Yasmin. And that's the reason I've been working on so many projects. I haven't been doing a lot of these. And I read that and I went, well, that's a sign. That's something amazing. And that's, it was a New York Times bestseller back in 99 and 2000. And the author unfortunately passed away in 2003, late 2003, early 2004. There's some speculation about there's some I'm not 100% sure the date, but that's another story for another time. But people don't, it was years ahead of its time, and like I said, it heavily relied on the works of Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks. But it is not known the way, it isn't really that well. It's not something that people are picking up. I'm happy because of my book. I know that it did. It has sold it's had a whole new life, that has been breathed into it. So that makes me really happy. But it's not something that you had not read my book yet. You found it on your own, and to find the inspiration. I mean, literally, if you're out there listening, the first chapter of my book, Scripting the Life You Want, is called Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. Like, this is not just a flippant mention, it's something that was really crucial to the story of how I finally figured this out. And just the fact that you found that. How did you find it? How did you find it? I want to know.
Yeah, it's a great
questions, Yasmin. We want to know the answer.
Yeah, it's so, when I read that first chapter, I almost fell off my chair, because the funny thing was, because you spoke about in your chapter how you had started the book and then put it down, and then you found it again, and you were like, well, clearly there's like
I got mugged. I got mugged. Down, and then a year and a half later, I got mugged, and that's a whole other wild story. But go ahead. Yeah, I need spirituality.
I'm going to give people a little, breadcrumbs, basically, like, read the book so that you know the story of why this book is so important, because it's such an incredible first chapter that I almost fell off my chair, because I had done the same thing. I had started it and then put it down, and I was kind of going through like a big transition during that period. And then after I read that chapter, I literally picked the book back up and read the whole thing. And so how I found the book, I was in San Francisco probably a month before, which is where I used to live. And there's this incredible place, which kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Harry Potter, like kind of one of those, stores of crystals and magic and mystery. And I was getting some incense there. And I normally take a look at their inventory, because it's usually very eclectic kind of books that you wouldn't normally find at like Barnes and Noble. And they have a lot of books there, but for whatever reason, they
used books and new books?
Just new books.
Very cool.
Just new books. And they had one copy of Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. And for whatever reason, I zeroed in on it and I picked it up. And it's an old book, so it doesn't actually have like reviews. And I kind of was like,
it's very old school, even to this day. Yes. Even though it was written in like the late 90s, I totally know what you mean. I mean, it was just, it's yes. Go ahead. Sorry. I'm grinning.
Yeah. It's like a mystery book. You just, and it's got like this kind of old school cover. And so I just brought it up to the front. And I said, have you heard about this book? And the person who owns the store said, yeah, it's an excellent book. I just keep ordering copies because people seem to keep buying it. And so I just said, okay, let me try it. But I thought it was so powerful because she makes it very fun and accessible to kind of understand this world. And also, so your work, which is like taking scripting, but then also feeling the feelings of that, is like both of those combined, I think for me at least, felt awesome. Just like being able to kind of write about it. And I want to actually switch to this concept of the reticular activating system, because I first learned about that in your book. And it
Awesome.
started to all make sense and click and come together for me in my own mind through that. And there's so many things in your book that I still want to talk about. So so let's actually pivot to what is the reticular activating system and why is
Absolutely.
this so important? Yeah.
Okay. So, I'd love to point out anybody out there who's on the fence of buying my book. It's not just about spirituality. Actually, half the book is about science, but it's very accessible science because I knew, I've always kind of known that this was where my life was going to go. I kind of fought it for a while, but I started teaching privately about, 8 years ago now, even longer, long story, but, just a lot of real estate people and CEOs and all sorts of just random people. And I had a moment where I told my husband, I was like, oh God, is this like, I'm doing this, I'm teaching manifesting to these people who are great manifestors. Is this what I'm doing now? So, it was a long journey. And when I got to when I got to actually getting the deal and deciding I'm going to write books for the rest of my life and teach this, I made myself a promise and a promise to my hopefully I had future readers, that I would do my level best to back up absolutely everything that I write about with science, because I think in a lot of the new age manifesting communities, they have really done themselves a disservice and also done science a disservice by ignoring it or feeling threatened by it, or even worse, misquoting it and completely getting it wrong and not taking the time to actually understand that there is this absolutely real place where science and spirituality are one and connect with each other and actually help each other. I know you had Dr. Mona Sabani on.
Yes.
Her book, Proof of Spiritual Phenomenon, just came out. And I was flattered. I just got it in the mail a couple days ago. And, she talks about how this is me totally tuning my own horn, but she ended up in a workshop. Her story is wild. I recommend everybody buy that book, Proof of Spiritual Phenomenon. But she was one of the top neuroscientists in the world who believed in nothing and then went down this incredible path and realized that there is a lot of things happening spiritually on the other side. Anyway, she had mentioned that she appreciated in the first workshop she came to of mine, mentioning the reticular activating system and how I talked about it. It's a very sciencey thing that you don't hear in I don't know who really writes about it or talks about it, but I wanted people right off the bat to understand why this works. Why can you write a fake journal entry in the morning and then at the end of the day look back and go, wait, that all happened? So there's a couple reasons. So Yasmin, I'm gonna use you. I know you know all this, but I'm gonna kind of use you as my scene partner, if you will. But,
yes, of course.
have you ever lost keys? Like,
yes.
Have you ever just been in your house and lost your? For me, I always lose my phone, my keys, and my thermos, my reusable water bottle. What do you lose?
The most, I actually lose my thermos the most.
Isn't that nuts? That's so funny. We are destined to be friend soulmates because I get made fun of by my husband, family, and friends all the time because it's giant and bright blue.
Mine is giant and bright blue. Stop.
Shut the front door. What? Really?
I'm going to send you a picture after.
Oh my God. Yes, please do. Yeah. So, okay. Anybody out there, if you lose things that you were holding in your hand and you bring them in your house or you're about to leave and you can't find it, even though it's something like a bright blue mug or your phone or your keys, your reticular activating system is actually to blame. And what it is, it's a system in your brain. And it's sort of like, and I'm going to just use the very easy explanation here. I go in a little bit more detail, but it's very easy to grasp and understand what this part of your brain does. And it acts as the filter for your life. Like it is literally your brain's filter to eliminate any unessential things to your survival. So it's fascinating because when you come in and you just haphazardly throw your keys or put your thermos down, and you go and do a bunch of stuff and then suddenly you can't find it. The reason you can't find it, even if, I mean, Yasmin, have you ever just turned around and it was in this one spot you swore you looked 50 times?
Yes.
Yes, that is because and this is real science, everybody listening, your brain decided when you walked in or whatever point you put your thermos down, that was non-essential information to your core primal survival, which is procreation, eating, the very basic things. And, we forget a lot of times that, as humans, we're animals, at the end of the day, we are part of this whole system of beings on this earth. Yes. But, we have very primal processes still operating within our minds. And I'm honored that a neuroscientist and quite a few doctors back me up and support me. And I've gotten to explore this field really in depth. But where it applies to manifestation and scripting and where losing your mug or your keys or your phone and not being able to find it applies so yes, your brain's filter has an autopilot, Yasmin. So normally it's just making sure you're safe, making sure that your basic needs are met, and knowing where the water is, knowing where the food is, knowing if you're in danger, knowing, it's filtering in those things. Now, I know, yes, you could argue a thermos would be hydration, then that would be life. But again, this is a very primal thing. So it would be more apt to notice water or lakes or, things like where fresh water sources are. But the coolest thing about the reticular activating system is it's programmable. It literally will also filter in what you tell it to focus on. So, have you ever had, and it's insane because I think I use this example in the book, I should know, but I use this in my classes all the time. If I say the old example was the Queen of England, but I'm not going to use that one right now because unfortunately she's everywhere. And I don't mean to, I'm not going to even get in the politics of all of it. You know what I mean? There's news everywhere. So no one's going to get blown away by this, but let's do, what was your favorite cartoon character as a kid, Yasmin?
Ooh, favorite cartoon.
Or now.
The Ninja Turtles. What was his name? Michelangelo.
Yes. Okay. Michelangelo. That's a fantastic example. Okay. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Green Guys, cartoon series, awesome show. And Michelangelo was one of the main turtles, but also a very, very famous artist and scientist in the Renaissance. Okay. So if you're listening out there, I'm going to just keep saying Michelangelo, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Say the name of the show one more time, Yasmin.
Teenage.
You know what I'm doing to everybody listening, right? You know what's happening right now. Just do it.
It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay, so now if you've listened to the show, you are going to get to experience your reticular activating system, your RAS or your brain's filter, because I can promise you in the next 72 hours, you are going to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in one form or the other in at least 3 or 4 places, or you're going to hear the name Michelangelo or read about that painter or that artist. You're literally going to see it because we have now, through talking about it and saying Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I can't even, that's like a tongue twister, huh? We have programmed your brain's reticular activating system to be aware and look out for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And the coolest thing, though, is you can program and deprogram your reticular activating system. And why that applies to manifestation is when you are writing your intentions in the morning and writing your script, you are literally programming that part of your brain to open up and look for all the opportunities, experiences, or things related to the desires you want. I'd love to tell a very quick, even for me, I promise, story that's not in the book.
Please, yeah.
About a realtor I worked with a few years ago who ended up getting her first multi-million-dollar sale kind of using her reticular activating system through my scripting.
Please tell us
the story. This is cool. I love this story. I was so mad because the book was written and then this happened and it was too late to put it in. Okay, so I work with a lot of real estate firms all over Southern California. They'll bring me in. I'll do, a day or 2 long workshop, whatever, yada, yada, yada. So I like to change it up. I'm very much, I like to ask my students what they want to learn about, or clients. I kind of want to feel where they're at. And a lot of times they have things, especially in the real estate world a few years ago, not as much right now, but that they're stressed about. So this one lady, she was lovely and she was younger. She was probably in her early 20s. And This was a really, really, really high-end Beverly Hills on Sunset Boulevard, like one of those offices, Yasmin, like
right.
the big wig, like on the strip, like on the Sunset Strip offices. Okay. So a friend of mine runs a real estate firm there, and she had brought me in, and I was meeting, the new hires for the year. It was the end of the year. It was sort of one of their Christmas presents. Hopefully they thought it was. I think this one person did. But without giving too much identifying information away, this girl was really upset because she did not make any sales over, at all in the millions, anywhere near the millions. She didn't get any properties. Like, she just wasn't getting the type of client that, in all honesty, would keep her at this dream job. She got her dream job, but she was not bringing in the clients or the houses or the inventory that they needed to sell.
Okay.
So I said, okay, and she was so upset, and bless her heart, I'm so thankful for her because she was so honest and raw and in front of her peers, in front of a big group. And I said, listen, do the 3 steps we've already outlined, Yasmin, do your daily want list, do your belief list, do your morning script and your journal. And I told her all about the reticular activating system. I explained how it's a filter and everything we just talked about. And I said, I promise you, and I am confident in the system enough to make this promise to her. I said, I promise you, you're going to get a deal. It was about like December 3rd or 4th before the new year. Like, you will, and you're going to be able to stay. It'll be fine. Just do, though. You have to do what I said. So she did it diligently. And it wasn't even, I think it was about a week and a day later, she was on her way to get her coffee. She always walked to the same coffee shop, same route every single day. And on the way, it was a pretty, it was kind of like a lunch coffee break, if you will, because it was like an hour she would get each day. And she walked past these same stores, and there was a bookstore that she passed every single day. And this one time, after doing this process for a week and a half and or a week and a day and getting to know her brain's filter, the RAS, she noticed that a very, very well-known, I can't say his name for obvious reasons, but someone we would all know in most countries, person was giving a book talk and known for being very wealthy and very smart. And she loved this guy. And instead of getting coffee, she ran in because he was giving a talk. He was there. It was advertised, big poster on the front. And he was right at the end of his talk, which she got to see about 10, 15 minutes. So she was excited. And afterwards, she made her way up to him. And they got to talking. Long story short, she almost got in a ton of trouble because she was so late going back to work. But he loved her so much. He had a property. He doesn't live here full time at all, but he had a property worth quite a bit of money in the high millions, and offered to let her sell it for him. And the craziest thing about all of this was not that she got her manifestation of getting finally that $1 million property, which she ended up selling, by the way, and not meeting this idol of hers, but was that the bookstore, the clerk, I don't know if it was the owner, I think it was just someone who worked there. She asked, why wasn't this poster out? I would have come and been, they go, it's been out there for a month. So she had been passing this poster that literally she almost missed, but she didn't. It changed her whole life, because she got the thing that she wanted, and she was able to stay, and she's still there. Actually, recently talked to her for the first time in a couple of years, and she uses it, the scripting process all the time. But what had happened was she didn't write down, Yasmin, I intend to see this famous person that everybody knows and loves, and I love too, at a bookstore. She was intending to get $1 million listing. That was her intention. And what her brain's reticular activating system did was it was now on high alert. She had been writing it every day. It's like programming a computer. It knew to look for the opportunities or the people, or, it expands past what you write on your intention, because if your intention is clear, which hers was, it was looking for opportunity. And, you could argue that the reticular activating system is one of the core pieces to what people call the law of attraction or manifesting, because if you figure out how to program your brain's RAS, this filter, which PS is very easy. Don't trust anybody who says it's hard. Run if they do. It's just as easy as making a list. That, that might be the big key here to understanding a lot of how manifesting works. And there's my short story that was very long, but I think it will help a lot of people.
Yes. I love it. I think I'd also love to share, maybe you can walk us through an example for people. What are the 3 big topics that everyone wants to manifest? Home is one, maybe a nicer, bigger home. Maybe it's health, wellness,
It's so
relationship?
interesting. It's changed recently, you're the first person to ask me this in a long time. And I changed for the better, I would say. So I've been so busy with the book and then my TV show, and just, I haven't been able to do as many classes. I had to stop doing one-on-ones. I might do a few next year. We'll see. But I love doing workshops with people, especially on Zoom nowadays. Oh my God. One class I had 22 countries represented. That was the coolest thing ever. But, the wants have changed, I think, just as a result of just the pandemic and whatever's going on. I mean, so many countries are having so much political stuff going on in every way, the war, and it's fascinating because before I would have said yes, home, money, health, that's the main three, but it has changed. And really, it's amazing. There's sort of this altruism happening, because I always dig deep with people and I go, well, what do you want? Okay, let's get through that. Why do you want that? And once you really dig down a little bit, you find that people really want to help the world right now, or help. I don't know what the word is for it, Yasmin, but people are being very altruistic. There's this sense of wanting to give back to the community, to the world, to certain countries. And it's fascinating to me because, the one thing, I mean, let's face it, about the world of law of attraction manifesting, it's very I driven. It's very much about, and that's fine. That's great. Whatever, it's very much about giving yourself things, giving yourself a house and money and a car and love. And this shift of one of the core things being, I want to make sure all of these kids are helped or fed or, healed, or all of these people are safe. And it's been a really interesting pivot, and I'm kind of excited to see where that goes. But right now, I would say the top three are health, home, finding a home, and that kind of ties into money. Honestly, both of those things, and finding a way to make an impact with the world, whether that's their small community or on a greater scale.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that so much. Makes
I know.
me.
I'm like almost teary eyed because it's you're the first to ask. I've been telling my husband and a couple of friends for a few months now. I'm like, something is changing. It's a beautiful thing. I love it.
Oh, I love that so much. It's interesting. I've noticed that as well. I think that as a human race, we're just like not the same. We're not the same coming out of the pandemic. And how can you be, right?
No.
And I think
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no, we're not the same. And yes, you're right. Yeah, it shifted everything. That was what was wild about even my book. It came out. The release date for the US was April 7th, 2020. And we were we had a whole literal world book tour scheduled. And it just was completely, which I had to be, was just scrapped. I mean, I remember recording the audiobook a month before the book came out, the first week of March. And just every day it was my publisher and my publicists were writing me and going, okay, this is going to be pushed up. Okay, we're canceling this. And I was like, oh no. But I loved that. People, it turned out, like to read or listen to audiobooks during the pandemic, because I think I've met so many people, even Dr. Mona Sabani that I mentioned earlier. I met her because I had to switch one of the East West Books in Palo Alto is one of the best and the biggest, I think, spiritual bookstore in the country. I had all these events planned there, and I ended up doing them on Zoom, and that's how we met. I think so many other people have had that experience where they've met friends or, learned new skills or have, worked on themselves in a way I don't think they ever would have before. And now, slowly creeping out of it, of the pandemic, I think people are evolved and changed.
Yes. I'm so happy to hear that. And Royce, we're actually coming up at time, which is
oh no,
I know there's so many more questions. We'll have to have you on the show again.
Yeah, I'd love to
definitely talk about everything future self. And I still wanted to talk about the Reddit group of Randonauts, but I think, I'd love to actually, before we sort of transition into closing, talking about memes and the importance of memes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Do you want me to just kind of talk broadly? Because people hear it and they go, what?
Yeah, please go ahead, Dad. Maybe introduce what you mentioned in the book and any other reflections you've had.
Sure. Yeah. It's so if you want to know the truth, memetics is something that reminds me of a T-Rex, or picture fill in the blank giant animal, wild animal that we meaning the scientific community, some of us in the spiritual community don't quite know how to tame yet. And what that really means is that it's something that is, I think, going to provide a ton of answers. And it reminds me of some of the breakthroughs happening in medicine right now. When we hit it with it, not that it's health related necessarily, but as far as the gravity of how important it is for us to really understand memes and memetics, I think is going to be and feel like these breakthroughs that we've been having, in the health world and science worlds recently. So when people hear memes, and I'm sure so many of you listening out there, I was the same way. Don't worry. That you guys are probably thinking about, stupid pictures on Facebook or online, or, weird little, pictures of a celebrity with words over them that are funny. And yes, that is a meme, but memetics is going to blow your mind. I'm going to try to do this as fast as I can. And I really encourage people to, if they read anything, just get my book and go to chapter 9. It is probably, I could confidently say, I think I tried to get everything for my readers. I read about 50 books over the last few years, because what was happening is people were not manifesting some of the big things, or they would manifest these really great things in their lives, and then something horrible would happen, or they would, lose their lover, or, lose a bunch of money. And it was so crazy, Yasmin. And, I'd love to come back and talk about this, at length, but I had these clients that these are, high net worth individuals who are usually pretty good and stable when they manifest things. And I was looking at it like, oh my God, like, what am I doing wrong? Something's wrong. And I had even had that experience where I would manifest huge things, and then maybe something bad would happen or something weird. Come to find out, as I'm talking to, in some case, some of these billionaires and these very, very wealthy or famous people, that, oh, that's normal. And I'm like, that is not normal. Like, they were saying to me that happens a lot. Something really bad will happen after they create something really good, whether they used to refer to it as manifesting, now they do. And I was like, no, there's something wrong here, everybody. That sounds pretty horrible. You guys are all just okay with this? Okay, nope, I'm going to figure this out. So I'm a research nerd, science nerd, and I stumbled basically upon this world of memetics. Now, what memes are is I'm actually going to read, I think that's the best way to do it. One of my favorite quotes from Richard Brody's book, Virus of the Mind. And essentially I'll say this: if we have genes, which are akin to physical, memes are the cultural building blocks. And I'm just going to quote here. All right, quote: "The meme, which rhymes with beam, is the basic building block of culture in the same way the gene is the basic building block of life. Memes are not only the building blocks of culture on a large scale, making up cultures, languages, and religions, but also on a small scale. Memes are the building blocks of your mind, the programming of your mental computer." And, I use that quote all the time because I want people to focus on that last line, which is that, and these are very, very, as you know, Yasmin, very distinguished, respected scientists who have written these books on memetics. But saying that a meme is the building block of your mind, the programming of your brain's computer, is kind of to someone who teaches manifesting, because we're told that we have complete control over everything that we create in our lives, and that we control our thoughts and we control our everything that we bring in. And there's Richard Dawkins, who's, funnily enough, an evolutionary scientist who I'm sure he's very controversial, but he actually coined the term meme. And this idea that they spread like a virus, that culture is spreadable. And I'm going to just read one more quote from Richard Dawkins, which is: "Memes are tunes, so songs, ideas, catchphrases, clothes, fashion, ways of making pots or building arches, so the ways we do things. Just as genes propagate themselves in the gene pool by leaping from body to body via sperm or eggs, memes propagate themselves in the meme pool by leaping from brain to brain via a process which, in the broad sense, can be called imitation." If a scientist hears or reads about a good idea, he passes it on to his colleagues and students. He mentions it in his articles and letters. If the idea catches on, it can be said to propagate itself, spreading from brain to brain. So when you think about what do we call it now, Yasmin, that was written, by the way, in the 70s,
Wow.
which, my God, for almost 50 years ago, because I think it was very early 70s. But what do we call it now, Yasmin?
Um, we call it,
Viral.
yeah.
Things go viral. And what really is something that goes viral? And it's so much bigger than that. But I think since we have a small amount of time here, it's important for people to understand. Essentially, memetics are spread through imitation. So, even you, I spread the meme of "Excuse me, your life is waiting," and so did I. That book, just it's how we talk to each other. It's songs that get stuck in your head. It's basically everything that makes up culture. There's this whole other aspect, and what they have found, and these scientists who studied it. I mean, there's a big push for it, especially in the 80s and 90s, and they kind of ended their books on a depressing note. It has changed since then, and I talk about this in the book, but these very atheist in many ways, in many cases, scientists who are studying memetics, which is trying to figure out how culture spreads and how, why do we go to the opera? There's nothing essential to our survival about, even though opera is beautiful, but about having that exist. There is a cultural aspect to our lives that is more akin to a gene or something that spreads like a virus than I think we've realized. And when I started just diving into this, the funny thing was at the end of these books, they would just go, well, we figured out when you meditate that it seems to kind of clear any negative memes. Because you can have, memetics can be inner city poverty. It could be poverty in general. It can be war. Memes can also be positive things. It can be, going to the doctor. It can be creating a new medicine. It could be, going to the spa. Like, these are all cultural habits we have. And they're so ingrained into us that what I discovered is they affect our manifestations. And that was very, I guess, upsetting and groundbreaking to some people when I publicly said this, but, as it turned out, it was true. And I knew it was, because this whole idea of, well, we create everything in our reality. If you've attracted something bad, then that is on you. Doesn't hold up when you look at the science behind memetics. And the great news is, this was years ago, I figured out a way to undo any of these, memes, if you will, that we all have them. The many of them are good. The fact that we brush our teeth is a good meme. These are just, think of it as a cultural or societal habit or thing that we do, or thing that you do every day. And there's so many, and the way I talk about how they get layered in, and yes, there's the people who go, oh, it's all mind control, and we're all programmed by advertisements and ads and everything, and like, those are memes. Everything is a meme, basically. I mean, images especially, I love to talk about, because our brains, we think of them in these supercomputers. They are, but there is still, once again, tying back to what we first talked about in the beginning, this very primal aspect. And I always liken words in a way, when we're talking about memetics, and it's funny because I wrote a book on scripting, but words in a way are the equivalent of trying to shove a DVD into a VCR player. Meaning the way that our brain takes in information, that it soaks it in the fastest, is actually through pictures and images. And look at how we started out communicating, Yasmin. Hieroglyphs. Look at the pictures, the cave paintings, the way that we've communicated memetically and just societally and through culture is through pictures. So what I had to sort of rationalize and kind of bring together was, how do we use scripting, but then fix this thing where we're having some weird stuff. Not everybody, but would have weird stuff happen. And I discovered the intersection point between memetics and the science of memes and memetics and manifestation. And there's a really simple tool, which is a sort of a vision board on steroids, if you will, that I created, that helps people undo any negative memetic things that might be going on in their lives. And it works really well, and it's really simple. But even if you don't want to buy the book, and you're hearing this, just start doing vision boards and put words and pictures on them, and try your best to start small and kind of go in order. If you want to move to Hawaii, what real estate company are you going to use there and here? What banks are you going to use when you move to Hawaii? What grocery stores are there? Put those pictures on. Start including everything, and that sort of I know it's one of those things where people go, what? But trust me. In the 1 minute I have to say, that is a really great way. I go through the process in my book, but that is a great way to start undoing them. And I explain why that's a good way to undo any negative memes. But I know I could talk forever about memetics, and I hope, did that work? Was that okay? I'm kind of like,
yes,
okay.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. So for folks starting out, doing like words and pictures and images, and it's funny because when I would create vision boards and put them on my refrigerator, I swear, everything on it would come true. I had a TEDx.
Because it funnels into your reticular activating system and memetics. It's actually just basically you're installing your own memes, if you will. And I'm talking about, like I said, it's a very different kind of meme than what most people think of. And that's, I think I always say, like the most clever thing that if memes were alive, that they've accomplished is convincing the world that they're just funny little pictures and not the culture that we like rely and reside in.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. I mean, to really, when you dissect your thoughts, like we're always creating these like pictures and images of what things represent in our mind. So
yes. We're getting fed that too. We're getting fed that. And I don't mean in a conspiracy crazy way. Like, we are getting fed by our own. I mean, we do it to ourselves too. And it's not all bad. But we do, we put in images, whether we're watching TV or reading or whatever. Like you said, we're always we have these images kind of playing in the background, but they affect not just our behaviors, but also, if our behaviors create and our thoughts create our reality, and that is what equals what we manifest, then understanding how important and impactful memes are, and also just images and words in general. I tell people to look around their house. It's a really easy, fun thing to do. And if, you'd be shocked. I was shocked the first time I did it, like how many weird words we have up, or lonely looking people, or, people that look sad, or just very angry images. Take them down, put other stuff up, put stuff that's happy, uplifting, and empowering. Even if you love that painting that's so heartbreaking and sorrowful, you might want to take a look at where your life is manifesting wise. It sounds crazy, but those very little switches help a lot.
Oh, yes. It's so we had Marie Diamond on the show, and she does like
she's one of my teachers. She's a great friend.
Oh, no way.
Love her.
Wow.
Yeah. When did you have her on?
It must have been like a year ago.
Yeah. She's great. We're actually going to have lunch next week. That's so funny.
Oh, that's so funny. You'll have to tell her that I say hello. She's
wonderful. I absolutely will. That's so great. If anybody out there's listening, if you want to learn it's not just feng shui, because I actually am, I learned dowsing from her, and it just will change your whole life. She's one of the top, and I'm seriously saying this, best teachers of all things spiritual that I've ever encountered. The fact that she only got 5 minutes in The Secret is a crime. But she is one of you can learn, even if you don't care about feng shui, you will learn so much. There's so many talks online. I cannot give her enough credit. She has guided me in my journey, especially over these past couple years, so much. And she's just a fantastic resource.
Oh, I love hearing that. Yeah, I had such a strong connection with her as well. Her work really
that doesn't surprise me. Because you and I have one, and she's the best. Oh my God.
Amazing. So Royce, where can people find you? You have obviously a TV show as well as a book. Where can we find all this
so
great?
I think we're fine. Yeah. So you can go to my website. So it is my name, so it's like a Rolls Royce. It's ROYCE. So think of Rolls Royce, and then thank my great grandpa for the Christian spelling, but it's like Christ YN. So CHRISTYN. So RoyceChristyn.com. The book is Scripting the Life You Want. There is I think I'm almost afraid to say this, but I'm pretty sure if what my team told me is correct, you should be able to go to scriptingbook.com pretty soon. And that will take you to my hard to spell name website, but it's RoyceChristyn.com. And I'm on, I'm on social media. I'm trying to get on there full time, but you can find my book wherever books are sold. And I'm so excited because this is my first book, and it's been translated into Spanish. It's going to be released globally October 4th. Scripting the Life You Want is coming out in Spanish all over the world. And it's also going to be not only in print wherever books are sold and, on ebook form, but the publisher hired an incredible voice actor to do the Spanish audiobook for this, because this is one of those books that's really great to listen to via audiobook. I'm not personally a huge audiobook person, but once I saw the response from my own book and audiobook, I understand how this book specifically can help people, because you can sort of, listen along and also do the processes along with me. I also have a YouTube channel. I believe my show airs in the UK, but I believe I have to talk to my producer, but I think it is in October that the episodes from the first season should be available. And I'm on streaming. I think it's going to be, I don't want to jinx it, but I will have an announcement on my YouTube. And I know there will be a few episodes from season 1 up on my YouTube. So I'm very excited about that. But if you are in the UK, it's on Sky Showcase. We are moving to Monday nights, but it's not on right now till November. So check out my website for the full time and date and channel and all that good stuff. But I think season 1 should be available here in the States to watch. And I love it because people can learn all about scripting, but I interview scientists and spiritual people, and sort of Marie was on that show too, but we had Frances Fisher, who was in, of course, Titanic, one of the biggest movies of all time. And she had one of the best manifesting stories I've ever experienced. And that's one of my favorite episodes. And that's going to be available on my YouTube pretty shortly. So we had all sorts of fascinating guests, and I hope people will like it and buy the book and listen to your show, because your show is amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, Royce. And we'll include the links in the show notes so that people can navigate and find it very easily. But I'm personally very interested in the show, so I'm super excited to check it out. And I'm also excited about your upcoming book, the new book. And I think just for good measure, I'm going to reread your current book because I think it's
thank you. Yes, I'm very excited for the new book. I always say, if an artist does well, their second album, a lot of times it used to be that was the bomb, but now that's when they tour. Like if they have the second album takes off, that's a lot of times the one. And I feel like people are going to really respond to this in a different way. I hope it's the equivalent of the album that lets the band tour. So we'll see. I'm happy with whatever, but there will be a tour no matter what, because authors get to do that. But you know what I mean?
Yes.
Really, it's not titled, but it is going to, it's all new and very easy to use information, but I'm my own guinea pig, and so is my family. I've done more in the last 3 years researching this. My life has changed for the better in more ways, to the point of having insane things like getting checks for $200,000 completely unexpectedly, seriously, in the mail, which will be in that book. Like what I learned and figured out, this giant key, is going to help so many people. So I'm so excited. It's untitled right now, but it'll be out next year. So just keep an eye out for that. And of course, you'll know all about it, Yasmin, and so will your listeners.
Yes. Oh, now I'm intrigued. What's the giant key?
You got to read the book. Reading Scripting the Life You Want is good for freshening up.
Okay. I will do that. I'm very interested in Future Self. We spoke about that. And
yes, we talked a lot about that.
We talked a lot about that. So we'll have to have you back on the show and do just a whole Future Self segment, because I think I've also been researching a lot of folks in the space, and I'm excited to exchange notes and hear what you think.
Yes, me too. All right, you're going to hear me again. Hope everybody wasn't too annoyed by my ADHD rambling high-pitched voice. No, I'm kidding.
You have such a wealth of knowledge. I feel like there's so much to talk about. And
you're so sweet. Really... I feel like it's such a geek and nerd. I'm like that kid at school. It's like, let's listen to all the science. But whatever, that's good, I guess. People are responding.
It's amazing. It's like you got the right brain, left brain mix. And I think that is so, so, so important, because a lot of people usually focus on one or the other. So
that's what you have too. I think that's what makes your journey and your podcast so awesome. So I'm grateful for you.
Thank you, Royce. Thank you. And for our audience, thanks for joining and for listening. In this episode, we learned about scripting your future self with Royce Christyn, and you can tune in to Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again.